In this episode, we will discuss infant mortality statistics from the Our World in Data website. Each of us was a newborn. In a moment you will see how many % of our brothers and sisters completed their journey earlier. The data presents infant mortality up to 5 days after birth. The data do not show death in the prenatal period. The presented data indicate the quality of medical care that a person receives in the first days after leaving the mother's womb. The examples of selected countries show that the trend around the world is positive for newborns. During the data collection period, mortality rates decline. Faster in some countries, slower in others. But the trend is clear. If you are interested in how many babies are born every day in Nigeria, stay until the end. For example, in 1960, in China, every third child did not survive to the 5th day, in India, every 4th child, in Indonesia, almost every 5th child, and in Latin American countries, every 6th child. If you were born at that time in these countries and you are watching this material, please note that death was close to you at that time and you are lucky. There is a big difference in the quality of perinatal care in European countries and the USA at that time. For example, in Poland every 15th child died, in the Soviet Union every 18th, in Germany 1 in 23, in the USA 1 in 33, and in France 1 in 35. 20 years later, all countries mentioned have made significant improvements in the care of newborns. China made a huge jump from 31% to 6%, Indonesia and India not so spectacularly, but also reduced infant mortality. Brazil, Mexico, the Soviet Union and the USA improved their statistics by twice as much as in the 1960s. France, Germany and Poland have almost tripled the care for children. From this year, we also have data from Nigeria, where the mortality rate was 21%. 20 years later, in the year 2000, Nigeria had only slightly improved to 18%. At the same time, China, India and Indonesia reduced infant mortality by twofold. Brazil reduced the result from almost 10 to 3.5%, Mexico from 7 to less than 3%. In Russia, the rate of decline in infant mortality dropped from 2.8 to 1.9. In Poland, from 2.4 to 0.9. In Germany, 1.5 to 0.5, and in France, 1.2 to 0.5. In the year 2000, the infant mortality rate in the USA is 0.8 and is twice as low as 2 decades earlier. The latest data comes from the year 2021. What has changed over the last 2 decades? Declines in infant mortality are evident everywhere. In Nigeria, from 18 to 11%. In India, from 9 to 3. In Indonesia, from 5 to 2. In China, it went from almost 4 to 0.7%. In Brazil, from 3.5 to 1.4, in Mexico, from 2.8 to 1.3%. Russia almost quadrupled from 2 to 0.5%. France, Germany and Poland all reached 0.4%. In the United States, the rate of decline in mortality rates has slowed significantly compared to other countries, from 0.8 to 0.6. What factors can influence infant mortality? There are a number of them. These include the quality of medical care and its effectiveness, the number of staff per patient, the mother's condition, the country's economic situation, armed conflicts and, finally, the sheer number of children born. Note that in Nigeria, for example, it is more difficult to maintain high infant survival rates despite best efforts. First, the country's population is over 230 million. That's a lot of people. Secondly, women there give birth to an average of 5 children. Thirdly, the country's economy does not allow for a high standard of medical care. Fourthly, in Nigeria there is 1 doctor for every 2,500 patients. Approximately 30,000 babies are born every day in Nigeria, which means that medical staff cannot provide the required assistance to all of them with the same care. On the other side we have, for example, Poland. Population 38 million, medium-sized country. In Poland, there is an average of 1.4 children per woman. The country's economy allows for high-quality medical care. About 750 children are born every day in Poland, which is the same as half an hour in Nigeria. 40 times less. In Poland, there is one doctor for every 270 patients, which is almost 10 times more than in Nigeria. Therefore, a newborn in a country with low fertility and high economic development receives much more attention from medical staff than in a country with high birth rate and lower level of economic development. Please look at the presented table. It lists the countries with the lowest infant mortality rates in the world. Almost all of them are countries with the lowest fertility rates and dying populations. There are Estonia, Singapore, Slovenia, Finland, Norway, Montenegro, Japan, Sweden, Italy and San Marino, Iceland, Belarus, Luxembourg and the Czech Republic. In turn, the highest infant mortality rate is recorded in African countries, where population growth is observed. According to data from the year 2021, the infant mortality rate in no country in the world exceeds 12%. Subscribe to this channel if you want to follow other data-driven information about the world.